Kia ora everyone and welcome to the ACE RMO 2026 Auckland Metro Region webinar. My name is Sam and I am the ACE RMO consultant. We're going to start off with an opening karakia and then I will give everyone a brief outline of today's webinar.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ke uta, kia mā taratara ke tai, ehi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hei hu, ti hei Māori ora.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you for all our attendees for joining today. It really is great to have you here. Before we move on to the panelist introductions, I will give you a brief outline of what you can look forward to this afternoon. So firstly, we will start off with a video introduction, and then our panelists will take you through a presentation that will cover off some key information about the district and opportunities that are available to you. You will also hear directly from our district representatives who will be able to share their experiences working at the hospital and perhaps what you can look forward to or expect on a day-to-day basis. Towards the end of the session, you will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then we will close off with a closing karakia.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Chris Lewis. I'm the Director of Clinical Training at Te Tokatumai Auckland City Hospital, and I'm also the Chair of the Pre-Vocational Training Committee here in Auckland.
Kia ora, I'm Sarah Koish. I'm the Recruitment and Allocation Team Lead.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Hidalgo. I'm the Recruitment and Allocation Consultant. My portfolio is the House Officers.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Ahmed. I'm the Pre-Vocational Medical Education Fellow at RMO Hospital. My role is primarily to organize and deliver the PGY1 Orientation Week, as well as the weekly House Officer teachings for the PGY1 and the quarterly teaching for the PGY2s.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Sophie. I'm one of the current PGY2s. I'm going to be speaking today about Middlemore, which is where I was placed last year as a PGY1. Also just sit on the PVTC committee alongside Akita, which is why we're here today.
Kia ora team, my name's Akita. I'm also one of the PGY2s. I was at Auckland last year, Auckland City, so I'd probably be speaking more on that. Apologies for my location. I'm in Queenstown.
Kia ora, my name's Rebecca Somerville. I'm a paediatrician at Waitakere Hospital and I'm the DCT for Waitemata, so do the same job as Chris, but at Waitemata. It's great to have you all here and hopefully we can give you some good information about what it's like to be a House Officer in Metro Auckland.
Big thank you from me to our panelists. I know time and capacity is very precious, so we really do appreciate you being here today to share this information.
Hi, I'm Maxine. So I started off my medical training with an undergraduate degree in physiology, and then I moved on from that and started medicine in my journey there, and now I'm working as a house officer and I'm in my second year. I chose to work in Auckland for many reasons. Firstly, I had great experiences as a student here and found the teaching was always of such good quality. I also loved that there were so many subspecialties to choose from and try out at a lower house officer level. Outside of the hospital, it meant I could keep up my sport at a high level, which was really important to me, and I had a great support network up here too. In Auckland, there is a large range of subspecialties to choose from. Last year, I was lucky enough to do both urology and cardiology as a first year, which are both very valuable and fascinating runs. You were very well supported within the hospital and with other registrars and seniors either around or contactable at all times. There's also so much to do socially outside the hospital, which I think is really important to consider. So I'm still in the process of deciding where I want to head. I know that I'm definitely interested in medicine, so I've started my physician training this year and I've just signed up to the RACP. At the moment, probably my biggest interest is in cardiology, so we'll see where that takes me. Yeah, so it's busy, but a good busy. I think there's always lots going on, lots of patients to see and things to do and be exposed to. I feel like I've seen a lot of procedures, and whether that's been, in or out of theatre and interventional, the side of medicine as well. And as I was saying earlier, there's also lots of support from seniors as well. So it's not too often that you feel like there's not someone around you can call or go and approach to ask any questions, which I found really helpful. Yeah. It is an amazing job, and that there's been a lot of challenges, especially over recent years, and starting out that can be quite overwhelming, especially obviously we've had a pandemic, but then there's been a lot of natural disasters of recent time, and it puts a lot of strain on our health systems. But I think just to remember that we do have an amazing job and we're in a privileged position, and and just to not forget that when times are hard, because at the end of the day every day we're seeing these amazing things and learning these amazing things, and that'd be my main advice. So in terms of medicine, for me, that would probably just be completing that degree and shifting into becoming a doctor. That was a big transition and something I'm really proud of. Outside of medicine, I'd have to say it was being able to represent my country in my chosen sport of futsal, which is something I got to travel around the world for and do while still continuing with medicine. I'm very proud of that as well.
Just speak briefly to kind of things in terms of the Auckland region, and then more specifically Middlemore, given that's where I've worked, and Akita will talk about Auckland City in a bit more detail as well. I think in regards to the Auckland metro region, sort of as alluded to in the video, often it is quite a good location for people to be in from both a friends and family support point of view. So I think that's definitely something to consider when you're ranking locations. And I think another part of working in the Auckland metro region is going forward, if you stay here, particularly in sort of PGY2 and then reg years, is that you can actually shift around and kind of within the different hospitals in the region, which can be both a good and bad thing, but it does sort of give you a bit more variety going forward. Working somewhere that you've already been a student as well can be very helpful. So I'd been a TI at Middlemore, and I think it was very helpful kind of having an understanding of a lot of that system-based stuff going into the role as a PGY1. I'm not sure what the next slide actually says, but I'll just speak now in terms of kind of Middlemore-based stuff. So I was at Middlemore PGY1. I'm actually still there now. The Stockholm Syndrome continues. But basically, I think one of the biggest things I liked about it is that it's a big centre, but kind of has the feeling of a small centre. It's quite hard to explain unless you've actually sort of worked there or potentially kind of been there as a student. And I think a lot of that comes down to the people, which is sort of twofold, both patients and people you work with. So it's a very diverse and complex patient population, significant comorbidities, but also quite interesting pathologies that you'll see. And I think, honestly, a lot of the patients there are very lovely and grateful for your care and can be quite rewarding from that aspect. Like, it does feel at times amongst the depths of all your work that you are really making a difference for a high needs population. In terms of the people you work with, I think it can get quite busy, but you kind of know that you're working alongside other like-minded house officers who are going to help, chip in and things like that. So it might be a terrible day, but I think, the collegiality and just really the culture of Middlemore is kind of banding together, getting through things. And that's just, something that really helps you get through work. can say the trauma bonding is very real. Shout out to Quarter 2 Orthopedics. Yeah, so very much in the deep end, I'd say, at Middlemore. But, you know, there's kind of a saying that if you survive there, you can survive anywhere. I can't really speak to that yet, given I haven't actually left, but I guess I'll see Quarter 3 and 4, I'll be at Auckland. So we'll see there. In terms of Middlemore, similar to probably Auckland City, is some of those specialty runs that you can get in PGY1, which I think has already been alluded to in the video, but that can be quite useful, particularly if you have strong interests in things. So like there's some of the medical subspecs you can do, cardio, resp, renal, things like that, but then also some of the surgical subspecs as well, particularly plastics, which I think is like solely at Middlemore, at least in the Auckland region. You could also do both PEDS and O&G runs as well, if that's something that you're interested in. I think some cons of living in Auckland is probably the commutes, and Middlemore kind of better depending on where you're based. There is staff parking, so that's $15.50 a week, and also the train station right outside, which can be quite useful for some people, and probably just some of the long hours that come with it. But I think that's just kind of the nature of the job in most places.
I think Sophie summed up, I think, the general attractive points about Auckland Metro region in general in terms of suspects, and having sort of a bit more support if you are from Auckland, and being in a larger centre, you definitely do have the ability to make a few more friends and do activities and things outside of work. The other sort of that small point that I want to touch on is the 3 main Auckland sites, from what I've heard, tend to have a bit more option in terms of food. So when you finally get your meal card, the variety type of food available is probably wider than it would be in a small region. And when it is one of your main good points in the day in, day out, it really does make a difference. And the other thing, being in a larger centre, is typically you have a few more RMOs and locums and things around, and so it can be a bit easier to cover shifts, and therefore theoretically easier to sort things like leave and time off. And it's, even if you are roster gaps and things, probably a little bit easier than a much smaller centre. The general cons, I think Sophie also covered in terms of commute and parking and things. Specifically for Auckland, it's a really rough parking situation. So unless you're able to catch public transport or get into work really early, you'll be spending a lot of money. Most people tend to find a parking option near-ish to the hospital or in the Grafton area that they pay for a few months or for the year, but it really does need a bit of an overhaul, I think. And the other sort of thing, it's really great to be able to access subspecialties and all of these niche little areas of medicine. Some of the challenges that do come with that, it is a little bit harder to see the bosses. It is a bit harder to get more hands-on, and especially when you're sort of slammed, your post-take, you're not really going to be able to get into theatre, or you're not really going to be able to get in your hands on a procedure compared to what you would be like in a much smaller centre. Why I specifically chose Auckland City, partly I figured the commute might be a little bit easier from where I live, and also had some friends around and that sort of thing who had also been planning to go to Auckland City. I'd done my 5th year in Middlemore, so it was kind of a toss-up between Middlemore and Auckland City, but essentially what kind of pushed me towards Auckland City and said, I think Middlemore has the people, it's known for being quite busy, and I think Auckland City is a little bit of a middle ground for that, so the people are quite nice. I haven't necessarily had any negative interactions with any of the consultants or regs. On the whole, people have been very nice and friendly. The patient population is generally quite nice as well, but it's maybe, from what I've heard, a little bit less of a workload than it is at Middlemore, and the North Shore was just a bit too far for me. Other than that, it seems like a great hospital. A big con at Auckland City at the moment, I'm not sure if it will affect you guys by the time you get in, about half the specialties are still transitioning into online notes, which is not the case for North Shore and Middlemore, and this makes a huge difference when you're on a long day or a night shift and you have to physically go onto the ward to go find a chart, to go find whatever odds chart and this sort of thing, instead of having something ready at your desk with all the information in front of you and just sort of phone call away. And so typically you can just see the really urgent people or review people who are quite sick. So that has a bit of an issue. But if you're used to working to that system, it's easier to transition to online notes compared to the other way around.
I'm going to be speaking to the support we provide to RMOs from a workforce operations perspective. So when you're starting in the region, you generally come through our recruitment and allocation team. So we receive your CVs, we help you with the onboarding, ask any pre-employment questions, and we'll try and answer them. And then once the offers have been sent out and you guys have been sent your allocations, you'd be passed along to our rostering team, who would draft up a nice roster for you and send it through to our RMO unit. So these RMO units are based at each of the hospitals, and they're there for any questions you might have. So if you want to ask about your meals, or if you want to ask about your leave balances, anything along those lines, anything HR related, ER related, you can stop by one of those little units and ask them any questions, and they can either direct you in the right place or provide you with that information. So we try to the best of our ability to support you from an admin side of things.
So thanks, Sarah. In terms of the last slide, I think it is worth describing from an educational level what's provided for brand new house officers starting in our region. And it's pretty similar at the three hospitals. So Auckland City, Middlemore and North Shore. All three would have a 1 week long, so 5-day PGY1 orientation program. All of those programs would include lots of information, but in particular time on the wards with the outgoing house officers, at least a day, so that our new interns can get some direct handover and get some on the ground tips. All of us, I think, will get our outgoing first and second year house officers to spend time with the new guys incoming, again, to help go through tips and tricks of being a house officer. There'll be training in the acutely deteriorating patient, some practical skills sessions, lots of question and answer sessions, and then things like IT, pharmacy, so on and so forth. And when the house officers start, all three of the Metro Auckland hospitals have a buddying system that goes for at least the first couple of weeks. So when our interns do their first long day out of hours or weekend shifts, there will be other more experienced house officers around alongside to help and to be a source of help and advice. Plus, each centre will have an education fellow. Ahmed is one of those who are, I guess you could regard as near peers. So they're quite senior house officers, maybe transiting through to being junior registrars. So still remember what it's like, and again, can be an ongoing source of support. So that's just a flavour of the support that's offered in the Auckland region when you first start. The recruitment process I'll talk about. So this is run through ACE. So ACE has an application process where there's a cover letter, a CV and references. The CV can include a personal statement, a section about skills, a section about experience, what you've done both as a medical student and outside of work as well, and a section for any prizes and awards. And then the ACE system calculates something called an ACE score, but also in the Auckland region, specifically the Pre-Vocational Training Committee meet and actually consider all applications individually. So a member of the PVTC will score each of the applications that come through. And we have our own Auckland region's PVTC, what's called Fit for Purpose Practitioner Scoring System, and that's on the next slide. So after that scoring's done, the applications are returned to ACE for offers to go out. But the areas in which the Auckland region scores are these ones here. So clinical performance, academic performance and achievement, personal strengths. We're interested in both you as a person and as a potential doctor, professional and team approach. And again, you may be able to demonstrate that both within and outside of the medical field, and also equity and cultural safety. And if we look at the next slide, it outlines, it's not a particularly big slide, but it outlines some of the domains and things that the PVTC are looking for and take into account when they score these CVs. So, for example, under clinical, and also to give you some idea of how these are judged, so clinical performance may be judged from CV and from references, academic performance and achievement, particularly from the CVs, professional and team approach, both from CV, cover letter and references, and then personal strengths as well. So don't forget on the CV to talk about things that you've done outside of medicine as well. All of these are really important and really of interest to the PVTC. And you can see that there are things like prior work in part-time jobs, other things you've done, or achievements, significant achievements outside of medicine. It was good to hear about the futsal, for example, from the earlier video. These things are all relevant. And then also very important to, as part of your application, to demonstrate your commitment to health equity and to cultural safety. And again, cover letter and CV achievements are a very good way to do that. This slide just outlines the breadth of PGY1 positions that are available in the Auckland region. So Rebecca's online may comment about Waitemata. Waitemata may be a little bit more of a generalist setup than perhaps the other two, but also it's important to point out that Waitemata has two hospitals, so North Shore Hospital and also Waitakere Hospital, which is in West Auckland. And the catchment population and setup there is quite different. Many interns have mentioned that Waitakere is a little bit more like a smaller hospital or a provincial hospital compared to North Shore, Auckland and Middlemore. Rebecca may be able to outline whether interns would expect to spend some of their PGY1 or PGY2 years at Waitakere Hospital. But you can see there are a very wide range of runs available, but with Te Toka Tū Mai and Counties Manukau having a number of quite specialised runs in first year. Although all interns will experience both, in PGY1 will get placed in both general and more specialised runs, even in the Te Toka Tū Mai and Counties Manukau centres. And then if we look at PGY2 on the next slide, so again, these become broader still. Other runs such as relief runs, which are not expected to do in first year, and more complex runs such as neurosurgery, plastics, ED, ICU, HDU, and some of the other subspecialties come in as well. And also community-based attachments. All three hospitals are working towards interns being able to spend 3 months in a community-based attachment during PGY2. So big hospitals, big opportunities. The Auckland, we take a very much a regional approach to our teaching to try and be consistent. All of the hospitals have a weekly protected PGY1 teaching session for an hour a week, and all of the hospitals have PGY2 teaching days. So as a second year, you get rostered off your service or your wards for 1 day a quarter and have a sort of a full day of teaching, which will often involve practical skills and simulation as well.
It's also good to note that when you are a PGY1, we generally will keep you and all your rotations for that year within one hospital. And this does allow you to get the full supervision that you do need. So be working with the same supervisors, getting the same advice. So both you and the supervisor know exactly who you're working with. And then when you move into PGY2, you get to move around a bit. So you get to experience different populations at the different hospitals, as well as the different ways they're set up. So that if you aren't intending on staying, say, at Auckland Hospital for your entire career, you get a bit of experience about how to change hospitals and what other hospitals could be like.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing all that information with our attendees. For the cover letters, given that Auckland hospitals are applied for separately, do we need to write individual cover letters for each Auckland hospital, or will one of them suffice?
I guess one thing that I would say is that having a look into the organisation that you want to work for shows a higher level of interest. And so certainly if I'm reading cover letters and someone's taken the time to have a look at the values or the vibe, if you like, of Counties Manukau or Te Toka Tū Mai or Waitemata, then I think that counts in your favour in terms of your cover letter. So although it's a little bit more administrative work, I think there is value in that. And if you have a particular passion for one of the districts, I think that really shows through in people's cover letters. If they, if they're like, I've always wanted to work at Middlemore, I've always wanted to work at Auckland or whatever it is, I think, what we want is to see a little bit of you in your cover letter. And the more genuine you are about that and the more you know about the district, I think the more likely you are to be successful.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I just wanted to add on to that from an ACE perspective. So when you're applying through the ACE portal, you have an option to either upload one generic cover letter. If you choose to do that, that will be viewable to all the employers or districts that you have preferenced. However, there is an option to upload individual separate cover letters for each district that you've chosen to separately preference either Auckland, Counties or Middlemore and Waitemata. So just following on from what Rebecca said, I do think it is more beneficial for you to upload an individual cover letter for each of those districts. Are there accommodation options, quarters provided or subsidized by the hospital?
No, unfortunately not.
Do we need to Zoom or meet in person to show interest?
I don't think so, no. I think the interest is a good thing to show through the cover letter, but sadly with it being such a huge application scheme, I think it's just impractical, unfortunately, to meet a lot of for training directors or for members of the PVTC to meet interested applicants beforehand. But I guess mentioning in your cover letter any specific connections that you've got to the hospital or district you're particularly interested in, and then potentially getting good references that show your commitment is also good.
Yeah, so
Thanks,
there's no
Fran.
interview process. It's just the cover letter, CV, and references.
What are the orientation dates for 2027?
The 11th of January will be the start
Yes,
of the 1
that's what
week
I'm thinking.
orientation, and this changeover date should be the 18th if it's the same as this
Yep.
year. I don't know if you can comment on that, Sarah, but
That is correct.
Next question. If we did our TR year outside of the Auckland Metro region, would this be a significant consideration in our application?
I don't think it's sorry, there's a second question afterwards. Are we disadvantaged by
Yeah.
not doing a TI year at one of the Auckland hospitals? I don't think so. I think that we're interested in employing good, bright people, and if you can make a good case for why you've done things as you've done them, then I still think you've got a very good chance of getting a job in the Auckland region. I think we value diversity. We value people coming in with different experiences. I mean, if you have done a TI period at one of the Auckland district hospitals and have, made a very good impression, and then are applying for a job and have got very good references, it may be of some advantage. But I certainly would not in any way want to put people who've not worked in the Auckland region off from applying, because I think we value applications from everybody and value diverse experiences.
yeah, I think we're
Next.
much more interested in your references and in the story that you tell us about yourself rather than whether you've worked in Auckland. I think, you all are graduating from excellent kind of medical schools, and your placements wherever you've been will be a mixture of hopefully mostly good and some less good, and that's the same for everybody. And I think the way that you present yourself in your cover letter and your CV is much, much more important than where you've done your training and tenure.
I think just to add to that as well, the cohort consists of Auckland grads and Otago grads who the Otago grads would never even have a shot at being able to have a TI year at Auckland. So I wouldn't worry too much about not having been in the system. There's also sort of 60 new house officers per 3 hospitals. So the Auckland region tends to get more applicants than there are spots, but I wouldn't count yourself out just for not having been in TI year there.
And we've
you.
certainly taken more than like a high percentage of Otago grads at Waitemata. And, I think you apply for where you want to go and you give it your best shot.
Thanks. Moving on to another question. So as a PGY 1 or 2, is there any mentoring program, especially if we are keen on a particular specialty?
Our house officers get a pre-vocational educational supervisor at the start of their PGY1 year, and that person follows you through the full 2 years. So if you do your first year at Waitemata, you'll have a SMO who's based at Waitemata, but when you rotate as a PGY2, they'll continue to be your peers. So you'll continue to have your supervision meetings with them. So that's a really solid way of making sure you have good mentorship across your first 2 years.
I think the principle of the question for a specific specialty, I don't think there's necessarily, like a reg or a group that does cardiology training or medical training and things. If you do end up on a run, or if you do end up meeting sort of some of the more senior staff who you want to get into their specialty, most people are very happy to be asked questions and talk through things, but I don't think there's any sort of formal system that's in place for that from a mentoring point of view, if that makes sense.
I would add that, all of the 3 centres will do some career education during PGY1 and provide information about careers and different contacts within careers. And the training directors, such as myself and Rebecca also, we've usually got the training jobs from having worked in the hospital for quite a while, so we know people. We're always happy to put interns in touch with people that can help them shape up careers.
If you are interested in working at Waitemata, are you able to do more than 1 quarter at Waitakere Hospital if you would like?
Yeah, generally as a PGY1, most people would do only 1 quarter at Waitakere, and that's really just around the specialty options that are available over there, because at Waitakere we have geri, psychiatry and general medicine, and so in order to make sure you get a really good balance in your PGY1 year from an educational point of view, most people would do just the one run at Waitakere so that you could have some surgical runs at North Shore. We don't have any surgical services based at North Shore at Waitakere, so it's not possible to do surgery there. Quite a few of our PGY1s will only work at North Shore, and then quite a few will do one run at Waitakere and 3 runs at North Shore. We also have a couple of other off-site places as well, so psychiatry is often off-site, even at PGY1 level, so some of the PGY1 psychiatry runs might be at an off-site location.
How much does research inputs weigh into prioritization for matches? The ACE perspective side, there is the ACE score, but in terms of the actual match itself, there is no prioritization. It's the employer ranking and your preference of the employer whereby you get matched. But I'm assuming in terms of the district or hospital ranking itself, perhaps you can comment if research inputs have a particular weight in terms of your ranking.
So I think in the Auckland region, a good research record would boost your ranking on the academic achievement scale and would potentially push you up in terms of preferencing, as would any other academic achievements, not just research. It is one of 5 scales though, but it would push you up a little bit. I don't think the system, unfortunately, is able to very specifically match people. So for example, if someone had done research in a particular specialty, I don't think it would necessarily be able to match them with a 3-month house officer post in that specialty.
Do you have much time outside of the hospital to pursue your interests?
Tricky one. Yes and no. I think initially starting out, like, you are very tired as a PGY1, especially in Q1 and sort of like those first few weeks. It's quite a big adjustment, even if you are doing reasonably normal hours as a TI, like with a few long days, to start like actually be properly at work and, you know, having to do long days, weekends, that sort of thing. Obviously nights and stuff won't come until later, but it is really important to kind of try and keep up those things outside of work. So yeah, whether that's, you know, stuff like sport or other hobbies, you know, deliberately kind of making plans with friends and things like that, just to make sure you're not getting a little bit drowned.
I think I definitely agree with Sophie. It's very easy to get on the train of, I'm just going to be at work, it's busy, I'm tired, I'm going to go home. You do have to be very intentional with what you do. Personally, I am, and a small plug to the New Zealand medical football team. If you are interested in football, let me know, Messenger, Facebook, whatever. My other hat. You have as much time as you allocate outside. I mean, you're different people have various responsibilities of household things and work and other children, whatever you have going on, but it is really important, and you do have time for things outside of work if you make the time. I was able to, you know, play in a 11-a-side football league throughout most of last year and still spend some time with friends and that sort of thing outside of work. But it does, like Sophie said, maybe the first, I would say 3 to 6 months, you're just really finding your feet as a house officer. For some people, it's their first job or first proper adult job, and you're getting used to a bunch of things, especially in the Auckland region. It's a big hospital. A lot of the systems, even if you've been there as a TI, are just going to be completely foreign to you. So it just takes time.
Perhaps this is a follow-on, Rebecca, about the time spent at Waitakere. Could you elaborate on how time is split between Waitakere Hospital and North Shore Hospital for Waitemata?
Just 1 quarter at the most as a PGY1 at Waitakere for those based at Waitemata.
For the pre-vocational advisor, can you request a mentor who is willing to mentor you, or is it allocated randomly by everyone?
It is relatively random. The pre-vocational educational supervisor role, it's not just about career. There's a number of facets to it. So it's not specifically tailored to careers. But again, the educational supervisors meet very regularly. So that's another way by which interns can potentially access good career advice. Educational supervisors will often sort of put interns in touch with each other in terms of trying to help with careers. Rebecca, is it the same at Waitemata?
Yes, it is. And I guess the other point is that as a first and second year doctor, it's really about getting your feet under the desk, learning, how to be a doctor and feeling confident with those basic things. And then the next step really is what does the career progression look like? And so the role of the PES is very much to support you in in what Sophia and Akita have talked about in terms of the long days and just getting used to working and what that's like, and making sure that you're balancing that with some things outside of work. And that's really what the PESs are there for. They can and do branch into kind of career advice or putting you in touch with, people that it's appropriate to do that for. But generally, that's not what you need, at least until, PGY2 or the second part of PGY2.
Do we get to select preferences for the rotations for PGY1?
Yeah, I can speak to that briefly. They send out, basically, once you know which of the hospitals you're at least for the Auckland-based one, you get a list of like the 60, however many of you that there will actually be. And so they're all slightly different sequences, basically, but sort of overarching idea is that you'll have 2 medical, 2 surgical in there. So you can kind of, try and prioritize ones if you'd rather do like a medical run first. If you'd rather, put some of the certain subspecialty ones like cardio, resp, or some of the surgical ones, then you can sort of try to prioritize those. Whether you kind of get your preferences is a different story, but yeah, most of the time you'll hopefully get kind of at least one of the ones that you've ranked, or they'll talk to you about alternatives.
I think just another small point on that, and you'll find this later, is if you do a Gen Med run first, typically you start on nights a little bit 3 months earlier than the rest of the cohort, but you also gain the skills that would probably help you with most runs. It's not a huge factor into the decision because, as Sophie said, you rank things as per your preference, but what you get is what you get.
When do PGY1s begin night shifts, and how often do they do them? Also, how often would you expect to work a weekend?
Generally, you'd expect to start your night shifts from 6 months, so 2 rotations in. So after you finish your first and second quarters, from the third quarter onwards, you'd be doing night shifts, unless you've done a Gen Med run in your first quarter. So then you'd be doing your night shifts from 3 months ahead. And saying that, the night shifts themselves, it's made up to be this huge thing, but you really at most get 2 to 3 nights per quarter. And so if you're breaking that up between 13 weeks, that's like one a month. Some people tend to have a little bit less. You'd be very unlucky to have more than that. And the night shifts themselves, you've either got weekday night, so that's Monday to Thursday night, and then you'll get 3 sleep days. So you're still paid, but you don't come into work for those. You can't be rostered on for those days, just to transition through. And I'm sure you'll at Auckland City, and I'm sure at the other 2 hospitals, you also get a bit of teaching on how to transition through that. So you either get a weekday night or you get a weekend night. So the weekend night starts on a Friday, then you do the Saturday night and then the Sunday night, and then again you have the 3 sleep days.
Do house officers feel the 3 hospitals are unique in terms of the skills or learning offered, i.e. a certain hospital would really help you upskill in med, surg, subspec, etc. over another hospital?
I think that's difficult, especially, I haven't worked between the hospitals yet, so I can't really comment comparison-wise. I think Middlemore can be quite hands-on in certain aspects, but then sometimes it's also so busy that you kind of miss out on some of that procedural stuff as well. So there's kind of a bit of a balance there. I guess it depends, particularly what you're trying to do, because some of those subspec surge things obviously are only going to be available at some of the hospitals. I'd say reasonably similar across the board, and it's kind of a what you make of it type thing, is in terms of jumping on opportunities if you're surgically inclined, trying to get to theatre when you can, but it'll really depend on what run-in team you end up on from that point of view.
I'd completely agree with that as well. I don't think between the 3 regions you'd find a huge difference, and at the end of the day, as much as you're trying to learn, you still have a job, and so until you finish your job, it's a little bit hard to get to theatre, a bit hard to pick up on procedures and things. No matter what hospital you're at, if you are really interested, there is always the opportunity to do some things after hours or out of hours, or organise with a reg to join an extra shift or something. I wouldn't do that all the time, but if you're super keen, there are some opportunities there as well.
I think as someone who walked across all 3 or actually 4 hospitals in Auckland, North Shore, Waitakere, and Middlemore. I think there are some differences, particularly as a medical registrar. I've noted that, for instance, well, when I wanted to do medicine, I thought Middlemore is the place to be because of how much you see, and that is true. But for instance, because of how busy it was, you often end up delaying sitting your exam later on because you didn't have time to study. And that's something I've noted that in other hospitals, they often get time to do. So I think it's really what you make out of it. I think there's pros and cons in every specialty and in every hospital. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good idea to actually rotate and experience the different places if you can as a PGY2 and moving forward. But yeah, it's really what you make out of it.
Do you give any sort of weight to people who have family or lots of supports in Auckland?
It's not specifically scored for, I guess, in terms of the cold, hard criteria. Is that I think mentioning your family ties in Auckland, why you would want to go there, what it means to you, and also why family and supports might be important to you and your success as a house officer. I think that would be a really good thing to mention in your cover letter. It might then come out in the in some ways in the scoring on personal strengths, for example, and teamwork.
Well, I guess that takes us to the end of our session. For our attendees, if you did have any questions, please, you can contact me directly. My details are available on the ACE RMO website. If it's anything to do with the ACE process at all, I'm here to support and help you through the application process. So feel free to reach out. And if it's anything in particular to do with the district directly, Sarah or Jennifer, would it be best for them to contact you in terms of any sort of district related questions?
Yeah, they could definitely send it through to us.
So thank you again. We really, really do appreciate your time, and for our attendees for joining. I hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Unahia, unahia. Unahia ki te uru tapunui. Ki wātia, ki māma, te nākau. Te tinana, te wairua, e te ara tangata. Koea rā e rongo. Whakaria ake ki runga. Kia tina, hui e, tai ki e.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Bye.